Good morning, good noon, good evening to all of you. Today we are going to start with your brand new subject JIGL, shortened for Jurisprudence, Interpretation and General Laws. First of all, I am going to make you understand what is the real meaning of jurisprudence, then interpretation, then general laws. Then I am going to tell you who is a jurist. Then we will finally start with our brand new chapter that's name is Sources of Law. So now without any further delay, let's get started. So what really is the meaning of jurisprudence? First of all, jurisprudence is made by the two words called jurist plus prudence. Jurist plus prudence. Again repeat with me, jurist plus prudence. That is nothing but study of law. Whenever any topic comes over study of law, that topic will be covered under the head called jurisprudence. Now you all know that Parliament of India is a great thing. It makes laws every year. Either you can understand the right meaning of the law or understand the wrong meaning of the law. Either there will be confusion over the law or there will be ambiguity over the law. Now what will you do if you find a confusion over the law? You will directly approach the court and ask them to make you understand the true meaning of the law, if it has been interpreted wrongly by you or there is a question over the law. Now the process by which court of law try to ascertain true meaning of law is known as interpretation. So whenever a court of law tries to find the true meaning of the law and the process will be followed by court, then it will be called as interpretation. I hope you got the meaning. Now let's understand what is the true meaning of general laws. It is applicable throughout the entire territory, subject to the power of the legislature that enacted, and applies to all the person in the same class, also called general act. What is a general law? General law means a law subject to the power of legislature that enacted, applies to all the persons in class, also called general act, which is applicable throughout the entire territory of India. Now take 2 minutes and just read the entire sentence and pause the video. Now I hope you have paused the video. Now let's get started. To who is a jurist? A person who is an expert in law is known as a jurist. Now whoever is a expert in law will be called as a jurist. Like a lawyer, like a judge will be called a jurist. Now finally we are going to start with our brand new chapter called Sources of Law, and this will be the lecture number 1 of your chapter. So now let's start with our chapter, that is Sources of Law. So what really do you mean by sources? Sources basically means origin. Like a tree has its origin from a seed, like what is the origin of law, we are going to understand in this chapter. Now law doesn't has a precise meaning. Like what do you mean by this? Means no one has defined the law very precisely. So different jurists means those who are expert in law gave their law definition classified in 5 schools. So whatever definitions we have received from great personalities, they have been classified in 5 schools. Now let's study those classification. The first one is natural school. The second one is positivistic school. The third one is historical school. The fourth one is sociological school. The fifth one is realistic school. Don't worry, we are going to study all the definitions in deep. So let's get started. Let's start with the natural school. What really did natural schools say about definition of law? So in natural schools, a lot of persons gave their own definition. Alpine defined law as the art or science of what is equitable and good, means what is right. Cicero said that law is the highest reason implanted in nature. The highest thing above all the things is law. Justinian Dias defined law as the standard of what is just and unjust. Salmond, the prominent modern natural law thinker, defines law as the body of principle recognized and applied by the state in the administration of justice. In ancient Hindu view, law is command of God and not of a sovereign. Basically means that in ancient Hindu view, they think that law is not a command of sovereign who makes the law, but it's command of a God. Okay. Now if I talk about, just take 2 minutes, read all the definition. If you want to write it down in your copy, just write it down and take 2 minutes and pause the video and read it. Okay, I hope that you have read the entire definitions after pausing the video. Now let's continue our lecture. Now there is another set of definition which was given by Vinogradov, described the law as the set of rules imposed and enforced by society with regard to the attribution and exercise of power over person. Basically Vinogradov says that there will be set of rules enforced by society, recognized by society, and it will have control over person and things like all the person will be equal to the law. In other words, the law consists of the rules recognized, acted upon by the courts of justice, means recognized by court of justice. It may be noted that there are two main factors of the definition. First, that to understand law means what is the important part of the definition, what is our two main factor. First, that one must understand law and one should know its purpose, why a particular law has been made, like why IPC has been, one should know that. Okay. Second, in order to ascertain the true nature of law, one should go to the courts, and not means who is making the law. You should not go to the person that who is you are making the law and you are making the wrong law. If you have any problem with any particular law, you should go to the courts and approach the courts. Now you all know that elections happen in every 5 years in India, and the elected candidates may go to the parliament, and according to the needs of society they draft laws. So can I say that if the elected candidate is going to the parliament and making laws, so can I say that it is the command of a political superior who has been elected, and according to the needs of the society he is making the laws? So can I say that? Yes, I can say that, and that is the view of the positivistic school. So what does it say? According to John Austin, law is the aggregate of rules set by men by political superior or sovereign to men as political subject. Aggregate of rule means law made by political superior, and it's the will of the political superior. Other words, law is the command of the political sovereign. Now Kelsen gave a pure theory of law. According to him, law is a normative science. Now in normative you have already understand the meaning in CSET, so I'm not going to explain that here. So if you want it, I can you can comment it, and I will reply to a comment. Now law doesn't attempt to describe what actually occurs, but only prescribe certain rules. Now please take 1 minute time and read all the definition that has been shown to you in the slide. If you want to write down, please write it down. Now I hope that you have paused the video and just write all the definitions, or read all the definitions, or taken screenshots. Now let's move on to our next thing, that is historical school. The historical school, the first theory, Savage's theory of law, can be summarized as follow: that law is a matter of unconscious and organic, therefore law is found and not made. Basically it says that law in itself existed but not recognized, but it is already existing in the society. Means law is found and not man-made, it's natural. So law is not universal in its nature. Law is not universal in itself like language. It varies with people and age. It saying that from country to country, from region to region, law not maybe vary with the needs of the society. Like if there is a place there where robbery is considered a grave crime, then that society may make laws for hanging the thief if he has stolen something. Okay, I hope you got the point. Now let's understand. According to Sir Henry Maine, the word of law has come down to us in close association with two notions: the notion of order and the notion of force. That is, you have to give it a read. It's not very important definition. Now again take 1 minute type and read all the definition that has been explained by me to you. Okay, now I hope you have paused the video, and now let's continue our lecture. Now let's talk about sociological theory. Daggett defines law as essentially and exclusively as a social fact. Sir, what really is meant by social fact? What really is social fact? So social fact, aspect of social life that shape our actions. So what do you really mean by aspect of social life? Like the morals which are given by your parents. Like you have to help the poor, you have to help the needy, you should not steal something, you should not do robbery, you should not hit anyone. That is nothing but aspects of social that is changing your behavior. Some of the example are values, belief, norms, ideologies. Like if I say value, the values given by your parents to respect elder, that is also a social fact. So Daggett defines law essentially and exclusively as social law. Whatever is social fact means law is basically prescribing us what to do and what not to do. Herring defines law as the form of the guarantee of the consent life of society assured by state power of consent. So he is basically saying that the essential condition that is needed by an individual, law assures that. If there is a crime committed, then the convicted will be punished. That is nothing but Herring definition defines means the form of the guarantee of the condition of life of society which is necessary assured by state power of constraint by applying the law. I hope you got it. Okay, now let's talk about, there are three essential of this definition. First, in the definition, law is treated as only one means of social control, means it is nothing but an only means to control the society and make the society disciplined. Second, law is to serve social purpose, means law main ideology is to protect the individual from the crime. The third, it's coercive in character. I'm not gonna tell you its meaning. You have to comment it out, Google it, or find it. I want you guys to be just be in learning with me, so that if you comment on, I will give you a heart from my side. Okay. Now let's continue our lecture. Now let's understand what is Roscoe Pound of theory. Attempt to control the human conduct. Law is nothing but attempt to control human conduct from doing the crimes, from doing the stealing, from doing the robbery. Through the help of the law, according to Pound, law is social engineering, which means a balance between the competing interests in society, in which applied science are used for resolving individual and social problems. Roscoe Pound thinks of law as social institute to justify social want, the claim of demand and expectation involved in society, giving effect as may be satisfied, such claim given by as may be satisfied, or such condition given by ordering of human conduct through politically organized society. So that was the theory of Roscoe Pound. Now that is nothing but Roscoe Pound main focus was on the control of the human conduct. Now you have all of the having the exams in June attempt or December attempt. One thing you already know, that what will be the effect of cheating. If I cheat in exam, what will be effect of it? That the institute will ban me from giving the exam further, or will demand a proper reason why have you cheated in the exam, and many more such things. So one thing that before going to the exam, you know that what will be the effect of cheating if I do the cheating in exam. So if I relate that to the our topic of realistic school, that school says that circumstances are already defined and circumstances punishment are already defined. So now let's get to the realistic school. According to Holmes, law is a settlement of circumstances in which public forces will be brought to bear upon through the courts. Means there will be kind of circumstance, and for the circumstances whatever happened, the punishment will be given by the court. According to Cardozo, I don't know how to pronounce it, a principle or rule of conduct so that established to justify a prediction with the reasonable certainty that it will be enforced by the court if the authority is challenged, and its principle or rule of law. Means if you do this conduct, that will happen. If you do the cheating, that will happen. So that is quite relatable to exam. If you go to the exam and cheat, what will happen? That same means if you do the crime, what will happen? It's defined by the law. Okay, I hope you got the point. Now take 2 minutes and pause the video and read the definition, and if you want to note it down, please note it down. Okay, now I hope that you have paused the video and noted it down. Now let's move on to a quick revision. Okay, so law presupposes a state, means the state must recognize the law. The state makes or authorizes to make or recognize or sanction rule, which are called law. So one thing I need to tell you, that the word which I haven't tell you the meaning of it, that is sanctions. Sanctions basically means punishment. The state makes or authorizes to make or recognize the sanction rules, which are called law. So that is the definition that a state has to say. For the rules to be effective, there are sanctions behind them. Means whenever a rule is made, there should be a punishment. If you do not follow it, the rule will be broken and you will be punished. These rules are made to serve some purpose. The purpose may be social purpose, or it may be simply to serve some personal end of despot. Now the law may be classified into 3 categories, that is mandatory, prohibitive and permission. What do you mean by mandatory? Mandatory to follow, for example, wearing a helmet on bike. The mandatory means you have to do that. If you are going on a bike, you have to wear a helmet. What is prohibitive? That is forbidding or restricting something, for example, dealing in drugs. Permissive, which neither requires nor forbids action but allows certain conduct on the part of an individual if he desires to act. That is to say that if I wanna drive a plane, the law doesn't restrict me, but I need a proper training. I can make the plane to fly at the highest speed. So that is nothing forbidden, and but allows certain conduct on the part of it. Okay, so now laws are made effective. So how the laws are made effective? That whatever we studied was sanctions make the law or rules to be made effective. So there are 5 things by law can be effective: by requiring damages to be paid for an injury due to disobedience. Okay, means if you have done in disobedience, the law will be required to have the damages from you if you have done any kind of damages to the state. By requiring one in some state to complete an obligation he has failed to perform, like in a contract, you have entered in a contract with a car dealer and the car dealer hasn't supplied you the car, then you can file a case and make him to deliver the car. By preventing disobedience, that is the same point, means before even happening the disobedience, the law can prevent it. Okay, by administering some form of punishment like going to the jail. Now, the modern Indian law as administered in courts is derived from various sources. Means the Indian law has been derived from various sources, and these sources will fall under the following two categories. The first one is principal sources of Indian law, that will be then it will include custom or customary law, judicial decision of presidents, statutes or legislation, personal law, Hindu and Mohammedan laws, etc. Secondary sources of law. The modern India has classified the laws into principal sources of law. Principal sources will include custom, judicial decisions, status, personal law, okay, and the second one is secondary sources of law. Now, India is a country of many religions, and each religion has its own practices. If I say that, so the India is a country of many religions, and there are many festivals coming in India. There is a Diwali, there is a Christmas, and there is Eid, and there is a Buddha's festival. There are a lot of festivals coming in India, but the practices that has been followed in each of the, like Diwali is religions has its own practices. So the practices are nothing but called customs. Why are they called customs? Like Diwali is called custom, Christmas is called custom, Eid is called custom, Buddha Jayanti is also called customs. That is most ancient of all the sources of law. Custom is nothing but all the sources of law. Now I have to understand what really is custom. Custom means practices that is followed by the religions. Okay, when the same thing was done again and again in a particular way, it assumed to be the form of custom. Same thing was done again and again, repeat with me, when the same thing was done again and again in a particular way, it assumed to be the form of a custom. Custom have played an important role during the ancient Hindu law. Most of the law given in Smritis, means ancient Hindu law customs are derived from what? Smritis and commentaries had its own custom. The Smritis have strongly recommended that custom should be followed, recognized. Means custom basically means ancient practices, and each religion has its ancient practices what to be followed. Okay, customs worked as reoriented force in Indian law. Now, customs without sanction, which are obligatory and present due to public opinion, means there will be no sanction, means there will be no punishment if you do not follow. For example, shoes outside the house. Now, customs having sanction have been categorized as legal custom and conventional custom. Okay. Now, the legal custom have been classified as local and general. Okay. So again, read it, and if you have any problem, just comment down. Means custom having sample have been classified as legal custom. Legal custom will further be classified as local and general, and another one of custom having sanction is conventional. Customs are of two types. The first one is custom without sanction. Second one is custom having sanction. Custom having sanction will be divided into legal sanction. Legal sanction will include local and general. Another one category is conventional. Now let's talk about legal custom. Legal custom is nothing but operate as binding rule of law, means the courts have recognized it and they have become part of the law of the land, like Hindu Marriage Act. Now let's talk about local custom. What really is meant by local custom? Local custom is the custom which prevails in some definite locality and constitute a source of law for that place only, means for a limited area. But there are certain sectional communities which take their custom whenever with them wherever they go. They are called local customs. These are very general things, so I want you to read general custom. It's very easy, so take 1 minute time, pause the video and read it, then we will move on further. And before going further, I'll need to tell you that local custom may be divided into geographical local custom and personal local custom. Okay, I hope that you have paused the video and read the general customs. Now you have to participate. If you do not read it, then I cannot do anything. I give that to read to use for your own benefit. Okay, I hope that you are reading whenever I am giving ordering to read that. Okay, so now let's move on to conventional custom. What really is meant by conventional custom? They are also known as usages. Remember that. It can be asked what conventional custom, you can even add that to your answer. These customs are binding due to an agreement between the party, like a contract, okay, sorry for bad handwriting, and not due to any legal authority independently possessed by them. Means there can be a two party and they can enter into the contract for their, like there is a contract of sale in which I will supply you 100 soaps, and if I do not perform that, then the condition will be defined between the parties if one doesn't perform its obligation. Before a court treats the conventional custom or incorporate in a contract, the following condition must be satisfied. For a conventional custom to be enforceable in court, the following conditions must be satisfied. It must be shown that the conventional custom is established and is fully known to the contract party, that if a contract is made, what are the terms and conditions of that particular contract. There is no fixed period for which a convention must have been observed before it is recognized as binding. Convention cannot alter the general law of the land. Means if a custom is there, means it cannot alter the general law of the land. Now take 1 minute time and read or take screenshot or note it down. Okay. Now I think that you have read or paused the video and taken the screenshot. Now let's move on further. Now let's decide what are the requisites of a valid custom. When to consider a custom as a valid custom. The first one is immemorial. The custom must be ancient. Second one is certainty. So custom must be certain and definite and must not be vague and ambiguous. Third one is reasonableness. A custom must not be reasonable, must be reasonable. Compulsory observe. Be valid, must have been continuously observed without any interruption from times immemorial, means that it should be ancient. Conformity with the law and public morality. Custom must not be opposed to morality or public policy, or not must conflict with statute or law, means it should not oppose any kind of law or public morality. Unanimity of offense. The custom must be general. If practice is left to individual, it can be not, means if an individual follows a particular custom, that cannot be considered as a custom, but the majority of the people should follow that practice, then that practice will be called as custom. Okay. Now let's say that there were two best friends named A and B. One day A borrows the computer of B, that is the white computer that you are seeing, that is a iMac. Now eventually what happens that A makes the computer not to work because of high usage, and without informing A, silently goes to A and give it to A in such a way that the computer is working. Hey bro, you give me the computer and I made it use in a normal way and it's working. You can check it if you want, but since A gave that in such a way to B that it works in a fine way, so B did not check the computer. But after that B found out that the computer is not working. He went to A and said that you have to get me the new one. Now B said that you have to get me the new laptop. Okay. Now A said that whatever you wanna do, just do it. I am not gonna give you a new laptop or a computer, B. Now B approaches the court. No need to buy. Now the court gives decision. No need to buy new, but pay for the damages of a computer. Means that when they approach the court, what happened basically that the court gave the decision in favor of B, that the A will have to pay the damages, but not to purchase a new computer. So what can I derive from this? In similar cases, this decision will be followed by lower court due to a doctrine of stare decisis. Now the judgment has been given that if the computer is damaged by other party, okay, then they will have to pay the damages. Like in case someone has damaged someone's car, then he will have to pay the damages. That will be followed in similar cases. Like if I try to summarize it in a simple way, I can say that for example, if a higher court has given a decision on this case, like whenever there will be a damaging of a property, then whoever will damage will have to compensate the plaintiff. Okay, so that will be happen due to a doctrine of stare decisis. It basically means that in similar cases the decision that has already been given by the court will be followed in the same case. Okay, now all the lower courts will have to follow this precedent from the upper court. Now if a upper court gives, like in case of A and B, if the decision has been given by Supreme Court, then in the similar cases high courts and lower courts will have to follow the same decision. Now let's talk about judicial precedent. The term precedent means some set of pattern guiding the future conduct. Means there will be a pattern and that will conduct the future conduct. Means pattern guiding the future conduct. Precedent basically says in judicial field, authority of past decision of the court for future cases. Like in case of A and B, okay, like they went to the Supreme Court. Now if they went to the Supreme Court gave decision that B will get B will get damages, means he will get the money to get the computer repaired. Now if the same case arises that there were X and Y, and Y damaged A's car, so if that particular thing happens, no need to buy a new car, but yes, we'll have to pay the damages. That is the same decision, but we'll have to pay the damages, only to pay the damages. That was the obligation. Okay, I hope you got the point. If there is anything that has been doubting in this lecture, you can comment down. Only such decisions which lay down some new rule or principle are called judicial precision. Like if there was no rule for that A and B case, then that can also be judicial precedent. If anything new rule is passed or principle, that is called judicial precedent. In case of A and B, only to pay damages from now on. Okay. Now let's talk about another thing. The principle of law expressed for the first time in a court becomes precedent to be followed as law in deciding, and to pay same thing. The rule that a court decision becomes a precedent to be followed in similar cases, means when a precedent is to be followed in similar cases, that will happen due to a doctrine called doctrine of stare decisis. Now you have to understand the true meaning of if. Now let's talk about our last topic of our lecture, that is high courts. Okay. So decision of high courts are binding on the subordinates court and tribunal within its jurisdiction, means within its applicable area. Now let's talk about in a high court, a single judge constitutes the smallest bench. A bench of 2 judges is known as a division bench. 3 or more judges constitute a full bench. A decision of such bench is binding on a smaller bench. Like the first is smallest bench, it will be called smallest. The second one is above it, it's called division bench. The third is full bench, which will consider of 3 benches, and whatever decision that is given by a full bench, and if the same case arises in a single judge bench, smallest bench, then the same decision will have to be followed by a single judge. Okay, though decision of a means sometimes the decision of a division bench is wrong, it is binding on a single judge on the same high court, means we'll have to follow that particular decision. Okay, so that's it for today's guys. I hope you liked the video, and yes, give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And the same video is also available, will be uploaded in Hindi in our another channel. Okay, link is in the description box of the video.